अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to another episode of Hafta on a very special day. It's Valentine's Day, which we've got the lover from Delhi for you on Valentine's Day, Hartosh Singh Balu.
Yes.
A Punjabi hot-blooded lover.
Milk and coffee.
And we were just discussing the benefits of black coffee before we started recording, and Hartosh said, "Kya yaar, bina doodh ke no point having anything, so you might as well die anyways." So that is. But since it's Valentine's Day, there is this QR code that is flashing in front of you. Make independent media your Valentine and gift the joint Newslaundry News Minute subscription to someone you love or even someone you hate, because hate must eventually turn to love. Because as we've always said here, no matter what your politics, who wins, who loses, you cannot dump half the people of your country into the ocean saying that, bhai, sorry, now you cannot. We have to learn to live with each other.
You may want to.
You see why we got the Punjabi lover here on Valentine's Day. So we record this on Friday, the 14th of February at 11 in the morning. Also joining us in the studio, the panelists today, our consulting editor and columnist, Anand, Vardhan. One subscriber has raised objections that I always introduce as Vakil Saab or Judge Saab. They say it's a very non-serious way of introducing. Why do you do this? Do the official introduction. So, what is your official designation, Anand?
I don't know.
Even I don't know. See, what is your official?
Managing editor.
Managing editor, because I also call her. People now take objection that I haven't called you editor of Caravan. I've called you lover from Punjab.
And lover is something that most people will not accuse Hartosh of. I mean, you're not known for loving. You're known for hating. You're the hater.
But see, there, very seriously, she said the word lover is an accusation in itself, which I did not say.
So, but औपचारिकता से हम introduction कर देते हैं हरतोष का. Hartosh is a very well-known journalist. Most of you have met him many times on Hafta and read his stuff. She has been published in various publications around the world, but currently is executive editor of the Caravan and has had many other important posts. He is also prominently featured in a podcast on Punjab. Do check it out. He has written lots on that. And also joining us later will be Tanvir Aeijaz, because like we promised you, we're going to be discussing the UGC guidelines, etc., etc. We've been promising you that for the last 4 or 5 weeks. So we will do that today. On that note, we also have 2 other projects. The Hindu Rashtra project, here's a QR code for that, where we're going to investigate villages that are building, Hindu Rashtra. They've declared themselves Hindu Rashtra. A school in Madhya Pradesh fired Muslim teacher after communal clash. Signboards in Uttarakhand have come up for boycotting non-Hindus. This is happening in at least 4 states. So we will have Anmol, Preetam, Prateek, Goyal, Basant Kumar, and at least 2 or 3 producers going to Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Uttarakhand. It's going to be a deep dive report. We'll be traveling extensively, and that's going to be expensive. So do contribute so that we don't have to take money from either Mukesh Bhai or Gautam Bhai or Narendra Bhai or Arvind Bhai or Rahul Bhai or all these people who give a lot of ads. We only depend on you.
Soros Bhai.
Soros Bhai also doesn't give us. Batao yaar. Bloody hell. Oh, someone was treated USAID se jo bhi.
I know USAID people are saying we are getting money.
USAID doesn't give money to private limited companies. Yeah, guys. You buffoons, at least get your facts right.
USAID had a project in 2015 for Swachh Bharat, which was signed with Modi. They don't forget. The Congress also forgets this fact.
Even when they say Om Diyar, they don't know how much they worked in the government of India. But theek hai, I mean, the illiterates of the world, some of whom regularly feature on panels on mainstream, and I'm rather disappointed to say some journalists who running digital operations also just for traffic get these nutters thinking they are doing some intelligent discourse. But
People
anyway.
you aim to love eventually.
Yeah, I can still love them. What's there? So, on that note, the Hindu Rashtra project, do contribute to that. And the Fight to Breathe campaign that is going to continue for the year. The details are on our website. Please do participate, because now the dirty air problem is not just a North India problem. It has reached Bangalore, Bombay, everywhere.
Yeah.
So we all have to get together and hold those responsible accountable. Do that, scan this QR code and see how you can get involved. So Manisha, let's get the headlines.
After that Kamath podcast, actually Bombay has woken up to it suddenly.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of influencers, celebrities talking about air in Bombay. Okay, so Prime Minister Narendra Modi traveled to France and USA this week. He met newly elected US President Donald Trump at the White House. Trump announced that India plans to purchase more US fighter jets, while Modi said that India plans to double its trade with the US by 2030. Trump, of course, also said that the tariffs are unfair, very unfair, and we will charge them as much as they charge us.
Right.
Modi also held meetings with Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Tulsi Gabbard. In France, he met Emmanuel Macron, president. He discussed Russia-Ukraine war, strategic partnership in defense, nuclear energy, and technological sectors. He was also the chair of the AI conference, right?
Was
Modi?
he? Was he the
Yeah.
chair of the conference?
He did speak.
You can joke
Yeah,
about
that he did.
everything.
No, but I must say he seemed quite comfortable taking questions in the US, which I haven't seen him quite so comfortable.
He was asked
In
a
the
question
past.
about Adani also.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can I ask whether you discussed at all today the case of Gautam Adani, who's one of the wealthiest men in Asia and perceived as an ally of Prime Minister Modi? Prime Minister Modi, have you asked the President to take action on that case? Thank you.
पहली बात है, भारत एक लोकतांत्रिक देश है और हमारे संस्कार, हमारी संस्कृति वसुधैव कुटुंबकम की है. हम पूरे विश्व को अपना एक परिवार मानते हैं. हर भारतीय को मैं अपना मानता हूं. दूसरी बात है, ऐसे व्यक्तिगत मामलों के लिए दो देश के मुखिया न मिलते हैं, न बैठते हैं, न बात करते हैं.
A series of well choreographed developments in Manipur this week. Just a day before the no confidence vote against Chief Minister Biren Singh, he resigned. This led to President's rule being imposed in the state.
Yeah, had Biren Singh lost the no confidence vote, the state would have had to undergo an election. So the centre has managed to avoid that very
But
cleverly.
it should happen soon, right? There's no other way. How long can they have President's rule there?
But they can choose another chief minister.
With them, anything is possible as long as they don't have to actually be accountable for what they do.
Yeah.
The results for Delhi Vidhan Sabha polls were announced on Saturday. It almost seems too long ago. The BJP returned to power in the national capital after 27 long years, scoring 48 out of 70 seats. Meanwhile, the incumbent AAP won 22 seats. And all the big wigs in AAP lost except Atishi Marlena.
Correct. But we are, I think, 7 days on and we don't know who the chief minister is going to be
Yeah.
yet.
Now we'll know. Modi ji is back. So there'll be some huddle and then he'll be present to bless the new chief minister of Delhi. A report by Washington DC based India Hate Lab revealed that anti-minority hate speech in India rose by 74% in 2024. The Prime Minister also featured in the list of people who've indulged in hate speech.
Right.
His speeches during the Lok Sabha. News from Parliament. Nirmala Sitharaman introduced the new income tax bill. This will replace the 6-decade-old Income Tax Act. The JPC report on the Waqf bill was tabled in the Rajya Sabha. Mallikarjun Kharge alleged that dissenting remarks were deleted and opposition MPs staged a walkout.
Yep.
The Adani Group has withdrawn from a 484 megawatt wind project in northern Sri Lanka after the government in Colombo allegedly moved to renegotiate the terms of the project. Not allegedly, they wanted to. They were very clear about the fact that they want to renegotiate the terms. So Adani's walked out of this. In what may be a relief for Adani, though, US President Donald Trump signed an executive order directing the Justice Department to pause prosecutions of Americans accused of bribing foreign officials to secure business deals. Quite something.
The context is that Adani was indicted by the US Attorney's Office in New York for 265 million bribery and fraud case. Although Gautam Bhai himself wasn't named, but companies that he's associated with were.
What were the code names? There was a code name suggesting
Something big, the big A or something.
Including, if I'm not mistaken, his brothers and all
Correct.
of us. So, I mean,
The Election Commission of India cannot erase the poll results data from the electronic voting machine during the checking and verification of microcontrollers of EVMs. That's what the Supreme Court said this week.
And the Election Commission continues to cover itself in glory. We should just think the Election Commission should basically be, instead of the constitutional body, it is a tiny body which is monitored by the Supreme Court because everything they have to be told by the Supreme Court because themselves are not doing anything properly, unfortunately.
Days after 7 states signed a resolution against the new UGC rules, Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan said that the new rules seek to grant universities greater autonomy in selecting faculty while promoting inclusive development for state universities.
We shall discuss in some detail.
Donald Trump spoke to Putin and Zelensky over a phone call and agreed to immediately start talks to end the Ukraine war. Europe is very unhappy about this. They said they want a seat on the table. They want to be in on the talks. And I think Donald Trump suggested basically that Kiev will have to give up the territory that's
Yeah,
already with
yeah.
them and the long cherished dream of joining NATO.
Yeah.
So it's status quo, whatever the borders
I don't know
are
if it's
as of
exactly
today.
status quo, but at least they aren't getting the earlier victory T, what was it, which they had taken? The south part of Ukraine in 2012 or 14, whenever.
Crimea.
Crimea, yeah. That's not going to be.
YouTuber and influencer Ranveer Alabadia triggered a controversy this week after he made a comment on a digital show called India's Got Latent. Assam and Maharashtra police registered an FIR and a case was even discussed in the parliament, and there's a joint parliamentary probe into it. Some 30 people have been summoned. All the judges
Yeah,
of the show
questioned.
have been questioned. So it's quite a crazy week
Yeah,
for...
it's
And
a-
of course, everyone in the media was obsessing over this case.
And Tanvir's gone latent.
Ranveer's got late.
So we're not going to discuss in detail because it should not get the time of airtime it's getting. It's really unfortunate. But I'm just saying I've got a SMS acknowledgement in on the 8th of April last year for a grievance because the Newslaundry site had been attacked in a very coordinated way. A lot of money was spent. And the National Cyber Crime Reporting Portal has said, yes, we have acknowledged your grievance. I haven't heard anything since. I've asked a few times. But meanwhile, this has been very seriously. 30 people have been summoned. Tanmay Bhatt, all the comedians, Rakhi
Yeah.
Sawant.
I think they've said they'll forgive him if he can call himself Ranveer Prayagraj.
Yeah, really. So that's all we have to say on that. It's a disgrace. But before we come to the Delhi polls, which I'd like to talk about, and I have one specific thing I want to discuss. Just briefly on the US visit, anything, Hartosh, you want to say that was noteworthy, which, since we aren't discussing in detail, but it's just happening even as we speak. The headline is about, how Modi reacted to the question on Adani, where he said when two world leaders meet, you don't discuss individuals. Sare Bharatiya mere hain. But yet, while, it was clear that Trump was showing a lot of warmth for Modi, but his utterances are very that India charges very high tariffs.
Yeah, he
We
really
were-
went on and on about
but he
how
kept
unfair
adding,
it is.
But he kept adding, and Mr. Modi agrees. So I don't know whether any of the industry, Hero, Honda and all are going to, when he comes in and said, you agreed with that? Like Harley Davidson? I don't think any of them have asked the guts. But everything that Trump said, which was like hostile to India trade-wise, he kind of ended the sentence by saying, and Mr. Modi agrees. So anything on this visit
Well,
at all?
if you look at today's newspapers, and most people don't look at them, but only the Tribune is leading with the headline that reciprocal tariffs announced by Trump. Yeah. Now, clearly, you are inviting somebody home.
Hmm.
And hours before that, you make the pointed statement that you will have reciprocal. No, it's already a sign. Behave, sit down and listen to what we are telling you, and we'll give you some PR as usual. That is what Modi wants. The French have also learnt it. But Trump
But
is
the
way
decision is
beyond.
made.
That decision is made. What will Modi do about it? And Modi understands this. He's going to go pay court, come back claiming some concessions here, a biscuit thrown here and there. And the actual news is this. But none of our newspapers are focusing on what reciprocal tariffs actually mean, who they will hit, what the consequences of this will be. We'll find out soon enough. Or if they are not imposed, they will be used to rest other concessions, which Modi is happy to grant as long as he gets to face the camera and say, my friend Doland and I basically had a good time.
Do you think anything noteworthy came out of this? Have you followed it? Although it's not even 24 hours.
No, it's still going on. See, the summit talks these days is a lot of peasantry. So the process would be longer, as though India and most of the rising powers are more focused now not in the multipolarity of power system, but multi-alignment. There is a difference. We can talk about it later. So ultimately, in the protracted process with other big powers, what will happen that these rising powers like India and with their, of course, considerable economic might are focusing on not putting all eggs in one basket. And with the new regime in Washington, they know that they have come with a kind of political mandate for their tariff rules and policy, and they will get into tune with it in the more substantive process, which I think the Prime Minister's visit is not a clear indication of. Means more diplomatic parleys will follow, and we will have to wait for next few months.
Right. Manisha,
I think this is a test of statecraft, and I think finally the Modi government will have to seriously think of what it means to engage diplomatically, because of the last 5 years, it's just been a lot of US needs us, the world needs us, we are Vishwaguru, Jai Shankar Lal Aankh will show everyone everything. And for some reason, the Biden administration was very accommodative of that. Not for some reason. I think Europe and America were on the same page with regard to China, and they invested in India, accommodated India. Everything was backdoor, everything was hush hush. And, there was this nice Modi getting his way. I think all of that ends with Trump. There's a lot of unpredictability in how he'll behave in public. And I don't think there's that distinction with him, private, public. So now we'll actually see how they deal with in America, which they can't really make sense of.
Right. So we'll move on to the Delhi election. Before that, I just want to recommend our audience watch the speeches at the AI conference in France. J.D. Vance's speech, the vice president was there, and Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the
Even
EU.
Modi spoke.
Even Modi spoke. I mean, Modi's speech, you can watch it. I don't think you'll learn anything from that. But what I thought was interesting in J.D. Vance's speeches, even when he's saying the most benign things, he says it like a threat. It's like he's there to fight with the EU, with everybody.
Yeah.
This is America believes that, artificial intelligence should be safe for all. And everybody believes the same. I mean, what you're saying is not controversial. And also the US have learned one thing from India, that in India, whether it's an MLA or a class monitor or some random diagnostic lab who puts out a front page ad, or Galgotia University who put out an ad yesterday or day before front page, will always start, thank you, Modi ji, for making Viksit Bharat and making our diagnostic lab possible, making our university possible, making my class cleaner, making my, my skin better. Everything is thanks to Modi ji. Even J.D. Vance's speech was, as Donald Trump said, it's become very Modi-esque.
Now, our administration, the Trump administration, believes that AI will have countless revolutionary applications in economic innovation. The United States of America is the leader in AI, and our administration plans to keep it that way. And to safeguard America's advantage, the Trump administration will ensure that the most powerful AI systems are built in the U.S. with American-designed and manufactured chips. Now, with the President's recent executive order on AI, we're developing an AI action plan that avoids an overly precautionary regulatory regime while ensuring that all Americans benefit from the technology and its transformative potential.
And Ursula von der Leyen's speech was so, just the tonal difference, and I think that's the America we're going to be dealing with. Even if they're saying the most normal, benign thing, they will say it ki, salo baith, chai pi. They will not say baithiye, chai pijiye. It was just a really dumb speech in tone, I thought. And I think that's the new America we're going to deal with. Now let's come to the Delhi election. And I have, called Hartosh here because, as you know, he's a huge supporter of Arvind and I'm a critic. So then we can... generally, what do you make of the Delhi election, the result? Did you think it would be like this? Is it unusual? Is it something that Congress people thought will come back? They have resurgent, or they are done in Delhi in the near term at least? What do you think?
I mean, first of all, I don't know which Congress person thought they're coming back. I don't know, in some deluded drawing room somewhere sitting there. I think you may have had our reporter Sunil Kashyap here. We've had our pieces. I think he was spot on, and we can run through what happened in the election later. But the consequences are very clear. That if you look at the three parties, the BJP is a new BJP. It has gained in strength since the 2024 elections. But it has gained in a new way. And I would say today the BJP is stronger than it was in 2019. The BJP, the equation between Modi and the RSS has substantially changed. People aren't paying enough attention to it. These three elections, state elections, were not fought on the face of Modi or on the back of Modi or Modi
not at
as
all.
the...
Yeah.
So there is now organizational strength, which if tomorrow Modi falls by the wayside for whatever reason, will not make a difference to their control of the country. They've got that organization. It also means a change in, and you will see as we go along, between the relationship between Modi and the RSS. Lip service will be paid now, but Modi can't treat Bhagwat as his henchman and tell him, you come here, you go there, etc. That equation is changed quite subtly, but quite evidently. So that's where the BJP stands. So for them, it's a huge success. Between the Congress and the AAP, I'm today in the unfortunate position of maybe tending to agree more with you and Yogendra, which is like one of the impossible situations I didn't want to find myself in, which is that I will call this the Pratap Bhanu Mehta syndrome. That in 2014, just because the Congress was a corrupt, inefficient government, run badly over 4 years, and there was media hype with these Sanghi-backed AAP people, etc., that you actually thought Modi is the better alternative. And there are today congressmen who otherwise seem to claim they are right in the head, who are actually celebrating the AAP defeat and welcoming a BJP victory.
Is that right? Who
Yeah,
celebrated?
all of them are.
At least the Delhi unit was pretty...
All the Delhi unit and all the coterie around Rahul is very, very happy. There's no secret. Why should we hide this fact here?
I'm not sure.
And the coterie around Rahul is like fools who will say what is necessary about Rahul. That AAP fought a good election. Give it to them. It was much closer than even the exit polls predicted. It was 2%. They ran over the last 3 years a government in shambles, thanks to the effort of the BJP and the LG
Sure, no
combined. Absolutely. Some of that propaganda stuck about the chief minister's house, etc. And I would love to see Narendra Modi's house also opened up in the same way and other houses, but that's okay. Kejriwal dug his own sort of grave on such matters by posturing as a man who is this clean-up man, corruption man. Keep a simple house, then there's nothing to show. Even if you show some glitz, it is going to be used. You are playing against the BJP. So some of that was there. Some of it was how the BJP effectively played the mobilization of communities and castes from the Jats to the Gujars, how they broke them away, both using the ED. Gehlot and others were broken away. So the AAP didn't have a prominent Jat face to show. So some of the aura, and it's a third term had worn off. I personally feel the biggest loser in this election is the Congress party. And
completely irrelevant.
It's more than irrelevant. It is the messaging you are giving. You know, you are, first of all...
No ally trusts you also. Akhilesh,
Nobody
Mamta.
trusts you. What is the messaging you are giving? Sandeep Dixit is happy about what? I mean, without...
3,000 votes.
This is our PT Usha syndrome. हम fourth आ गए हैं, तो हम तो medal जीत के आ गए हैं. I mean, what is this thing? You've got 5,000 votes as a prominent politician. This is your great claim to elections. And if you look at the Congress through this, no ally trusts you. You are behaving like a villager in a feud, where it doesn't matter who your biggest opposition, your enemy is. Oh, that person took my eye out, I will take his eye out. And this is what the party is reduced to. It is incapable of organizational politics. Forget the ideological point of view. And in all this, if the liberal says that the AAP stayed silent on Muslims, yes, it did. The AAP did not do anything that was necessary post the Delhi riots, did not take stands. All that is important. But in the end, you are choosing between bad alternatives. You make your decision.
Which is the whole thing of politics is a menu that you're given.
Yeah,
It's not a buffet, take what you want. You have anything on the election result? What does it throw up? I think the one thing that is commendable what the BJP's pulled off is in today's day and age, and I've maintained that for a long time, that, you know, personalities are bigger than organizations today, whether it's a Trump, Bolsonaro, that Argentinian guy who took that chainsaw, I've forgotten his name. You know, social media influencers matter more than the brand. And they've won an election in Delhi without a face, which I think is amazing. We still don't know who the chief minister is going to be.
No, I think in more simple terms, it was basically a vote between a transactional vote and anti-incumbent vote. So transactional vote in terms of the beneficiaries of the freebies that are offered, and anti-incumbency, which is a natural occurrence about, say, which has a periodicity attached to it of 5 years, sell by date, or 10 years. Now, the question was whether the anti-incumbent vote is going to have some same transactional effect, and BJP made a lot of effort in convincing a sizable section of electorate that the freebies will continue. So,
Mr. Modi said it in most of his speeches.
also the door-to-door campaigning. Also, it was also an election in the neighborhoods I saw that the election didn't have any budge, and I didn't see much campaigning. Means in the areas I live, possibly a lower middle class area in North Delhi, but I didn't. It didn't seem that an election is happening from the both parties. The campaigning was very low key, third is that, of course, the organizational strength that Mr. Bal was talking about, that added to the push factors in, I think, last 15 days. But BJP was also very focused on one factor that was always going to, in some election, play to their advantage, is that they were starting with a baseline of 36% votes. So in 2020 also, and even before that, when AAP swept with 67 seats, they had 35 and 36% votes. So it's a good baseline to start with, and you have to add just 10% votes more. It is just the first part of the post system that was not giving an actual reflection of the vote strength they had even in Delhi Assembly polls. So 35%, and in Lok Sabha elections it flips. If that 51%, they breach the 50% mark in Lok Sabha, and around 35%, 35% in last 3 years Lok Sabha. So that they worked on, and the anti-incumbency factor and a lot of other factors, like in the say the peripheral area of Delhi, a lot of the HT did a data piece on that. A lot of areas have come up with a new segments of electorate, and you have to appeal to that, and that they took into account that also, the focus on that. Yeah.
Anything you want to add?
I think the key sentiment that we were getting from our reporters in Delhi was that if AAP comes to power and they actually can't do much, it's just better to go with the BJP. And this is in a place where this city is not averse to the BJP, right? Lok Sabha,
So
more
it's a
than
bully
50%.
having won. That
Yeah, so there's this practical choice. And I think what was Kejriwal's slogan in 2020, that PM Modi in the center and me in the state. So even he knows that this is a city that there's no aversion to BJP, say for example, or there's no fear of an outsider BJP. You can't regroup people along linguistic lines or whatever. So I think there's a very clear choice between many of the voters that we get BJP that can get our work done, or we get AAP and we again have a stalemate for the next 4
so they may
years.
not dislike AAP, but they know that they can't get anything
Despite
done.
this sentiment, for them to get 40% votes, more than that, is, I think, quite something. And so I would not dismiss, like the op-eds that Delhi has rejected freebies or Delhi has rejected AAP's politics. I think this is a huge sentiment. It's a practical sentiment to have. And despite that, if they're able to garner 40% votes, it's something. The other thing, I think, organizational game, we were hearing a lot from our reporters that we weren't seeing AAP workers on the ground, Even on the day of the election, BJP had a lot of people on its table. It was, getting people. AAP would have won. So this is important. Why, when you're a political worker, one of the reasons why you become a political worker is to get people's work done. And how do you become important in the scheme of politics? If you have political aspirations, is to be able to have the clout to get people's work done. Now with AAP, no political worker can get their work done or claim in their neighborhood that I can get your work done. So there's no incentive to carry on with the party when you don't have izzat back in your own neighborhood, back in your own little constituency. Isne kaam kara diya. So if you take that away, then you can mobilize on
and
ideology.
Why is that?
You can't get any work done. No AAP guy can get any work done. Because of LG. So there's that sentiment that they actually aren't in power in
So
Delhi.
that strategy worked basically.
Yeah, so that demotivates the worker. And apart from that, then there's ideology. You can motivate on the basis of ideology. And AAP, I do agree with that criticism of the past 4 or 5 years at least. It hasn't given us a strong ideological understanding of why they're against the BJP. In fact, like I said, in 2020, there's PM Modi at the center, Kejriwal in state. Even and the criticism among a lot of despondency among Muslim voters, although they did strategically, then a lot
Vote
of them
for
did
them.
vote for AAP. But there is that despondency among especially urban educated Muslims who were saying we don't want to vote for this party because where does it stand on the key issue of what is its defining politics against the BJP? There's no clear
Right.
answer to that.
So,
So I think that kind of also thoda chips away from.
So, I read a lot of analysis and stuff, which, I don't claim to understand politics, electoral politics that well, although because, full disclosure, I was very much involved in the 2012-13 election, the first one, the 40-day election, which was that. Because that time the NGO had just transitioned to a party, there was no media head, there was nobody, everyone was just swimming and doing whatever the hell we could. But so I do understand how election is fought because I was very much involved in the Nukkad Sabha. The one aspect, and you also said that the RSS angle, which I can say with certainty, is this kind of story that has viral. In fact, Jagdish sir, who I have a lot of love and respect for, Choker, but he at least has made it clear that he's speculating that the RSS dumped the AAP, that he's saying that going by how RSS props up people or parties, outfits that they need, and then they shut them down when they're not needed, they could have done the same with AAP, but he's made very clear that is a speculation. He has not claimed that he has on any good authority that it was a RSS. But, Sekhri in his video has said with authority as if he has documents to prove that the whole IAC strategy was done in the Vivekanand Foundation. Now, I can tell you with certainty because I was one of the first 12 in Parivartan before it became PCRF, which kind of snowballed into the India Against Corruption movement. I was sitting one day in the Rajya Sabha studio set. This is when the UPA was around. And there were 3 quote-unquote senior journalists. I remember the face of one. He has a scar somewhere on his face. I think he was the editor of the Hindi version of Hindustan Times. I've forgotten his name, but I'll recognize him if I see him. And of course, they didn't know who I was. There were 4 of them sitting. And they were very close to the Congress. And they were saying, ye jo chal raha hai na. That time the AAP hadn't happened yet, but it was the IAC was at its peak. हाँ ये तो इन्होंने RSS इनको पैसा दे रहा है, ये कर रहे हैं वो. So of course they didn't know who I was because not that I'm anyone now, but those days I hadn't even appeared on panels. So I said, just want to say that I have just signed the check for Anna's air ticket and come. And if anyone wants to do an audit, go pull out the PCRF accounts, see who was signing the checks every time Anna decided. And I used to get really irritated. I was used to tell dude, there's no money in the fucking bank. Anna decides I want to come here with 30 lakh. So the people who helped Shri Ravi Shankar's Gautam Vij and his brother, they're lovely people. They've offered very often, we'll do a art of living session with the staff of Newslaundry because we're very stressed out. I've said no. Often the tambu was theirs. I know many people who sent packets of water, this thing. But this thing that this was some strategy that the Vivekanand Foundation, dude, the kind of ultra-left communists who even I disagreed with, who were part of that coterie, it was this snowball. So I just want to say that I challenge anyone to give evidence that this entire AAP thing is RSS backed. I can give you evidence that it is. You really think Yogendra and Prashant would sit in a team that is being organized by the RSS? So why does that narrative get so much traction? Because I see responsible columnists also now, they think that's part of the deal, which it's not. I can tell you with certainty, IAC was never an RSS creation. Just to give you the first dharna we held, Sitaram Yechury sat, this is the RTI days, and there was this one MP from the Northeast, I've forgotten his name, who was also a supporter of UPA. We said, please don't go on stage because it'll become political. So Sitaram and that gentleman from they sat in this thing with us. Aruna and Arvind were on stage. And then during the Jan Lokpal movement, when Ramdev tried to hijack it, and again, I can tell you Naveen, who was Swati's former husband, whose wrestlers were our security, when Ramdev came on stage and took over the mic, I was told by Manish from the stage, start making a noise because we don't want this guy here, and it was pissing off a lot of people. So then many of us started saying, get him off stage, get him off stage. Some said some nasty stuff. Ramdev figured out that I should get the fuck out of here. He left and he never came back. That's when he started his own this thing. Because there were a lot of people there, they said, we are not going to let. But yes, Shri's team helped us. But it was never this conspiracy.
Everyone joined in, but it's not like...
Yeah, it was. So I
came
don't
from the top.
understand how that has become that इनको तो RSS back कर रहा है.
Can I ask?
हाँ.
So I think it was backed by the RSS because whether you wanted the RSS or not, the RSS was backing it. So
But so were ultra-leftists.
So were leftists. So was the 84 violence conducted by the Congress, but it was backed by the RSS. Yeah, so the question is, where does the RSS come in and where does it fit in? It does fit in very well. In that convergence of interest, you can go back to the JP movement, you can see other socialist movements. Failing to understand what the RSS gets out of a movement and where it sits politically is also an important political failure. Not to understand where and which political target you have. Yes, the Congress was a huge problem. But did that make the RSS right, or that you could go walk along with their support? Did that make it right? I think that was a big error. And in terms of the people that were mobilized, the people who joined part of the movement, a huge amount of RSS organizational strength went into that. Whether you were seeking that strength or not didn't matter. In the sense, there was a convergence of interests at that point of time. And the RSS was quite open about it.
Yeah, but
Anna
for example,
Hazare himself. Now, for example,
Anna
and we can
also
go
was
to...
just Anna was just
Anna was a-
incidental to it. He came in
He
much
was a
later.
man who whipped people around and you were projecting him.
Once he did that once, but I'm just saying.
Once
but
or how many times?
See,
Come on.
for example, the
Don't
first
say
time,
once.
it was once.
Once.
That
but
has
it's still
become
terrible.
that has no, dude. It
This-
happened once at his village, and I have photographs of the village. Anyway, I'll come to that later. That's a longer discussion because I should do a longer, first person account of that. But when the first night when I realized a lot of people are coming and people are not going back, this is before I moved to Ramlila Maidan, when we were still at Jantar Mantar, when I needed rock stars like Rocky and Mayur to come and say that so that other people will come. The first set of mattresses were sent by the Gurdwara in CP. Is that
But
to say
my-
the SGP was
Well,
backing
But
us?
Hartosh,
the
when
point
you
is
say-
the emergency movement, the Akalis were the biggest participants in the anti-emergency movement. That the RSS did not gain and
No,
substantially
they gained,
back
but-
the
yeah, but
RSS
it
movement.
wasn't-
Those are
it
very
wasn't
different
their
things.
brainchild. They said,
Well,
"ठीक है,
but,
बहती गंगा में जा रहा है." So
backing
it
does
wasn't.
not mean brainchild or organized, but the fact is that the RSS was worked together without any pushback from this side is very clear. The distancing from the RSS never took place. Nobody said, we don't want these guys, this is not the shit that we want along with us, this is not the ideology we stand for. This
No, but
was
who
never
from the
specific.
RSS was part of the core committee of the ISC, not a single person.
What was the ideological position till now? The AAP doesn't have a position
No,
on communal issues, still doesn't articulate it. The problem is that this is the neutrality on these positions, the weakness of standing up for saying this is what is wrong or right has always dogged the AAP movement from the beginning.
On the Kashmir issue, when Prashant had to step back because he articulated his view on the Kashmir issue, and anyway, you were saying something.
But I'm saying that when you say backed by the RSS, it's different from joining in. Like, do you mean that they just joined in and they were never kind of up or whatever? The IAC members never took a position to distance themselves versus the suggestion that they were backing in terms of money, in terms of planning how
Ideas,
the protest
No, the
will
whole
be.
Vivekanand Foundation is the brainchild. It is that I don't understand. Like, I didn't even know what the fuck Vivekanand Foundation was back then.
I'm drawing the same parallels. It is not as if they stood there, but there was no attempt to draw the line when they were very much part of a movement that was gaining effort or mileage at that point of time, working in tandem in their own way with nobody ever drawing a line and saying, these are not the people we want along with us.
So they didn't clarify their position or
They
distance
did
themselves. but-
deliberately so.
because the goal, I guess, was just to rally around anti-corruption.
I mean, I
so
have
then you get
another
everyone.
instance on that. But you have any take on this, on the narrative that this was a
no
brainchild or a
comments.
conspiracy? So I'll tell you, this is I think in 2006 or 7, I may get the year wrong. K.S. Sudarshan was the Sarsanchalak of the RSS. 6, 7 ही होगा, I'm guessing, maybe 8.
Yeah.
And Arvind, Manisha and we were conducting these RTI camps all over the country. There was this big Ghoos Ko Ghusa. We had met Digvijay Singh in South Avenue, North Avenue. His flat was, I think, the second or third if you go down North Avenue from. He, of course, wanted to undercut Manmohan and his gang because he was Team Sonia, and there was that. He says, I'll help you set up these RTI camps because Sonia was pro-RTI, Manmohan was anti-RTI. So we said, okay, if your workers can help set up camps in Bulandshahr and all, yes, as long as RTIs are filed and people get accountability that hamara paisa, hamara haq. We met Mr. K.S. Sudarshan also. And I was there in that meeting. And I remember at that time, because my view on RSS, and also Arvind's view on RSS was not very distant from mine. Today he can't say it because politics changes people. He had said, Arvind, ji, aap itne, aapne is UPSC crack kiya hai. You know, RSS runs these schools for very bright kids who then are supposed to crack the UPSC so that they can have their people in, what are those gifted?
Sankalp.
He says, you come and train those. Now, we had gone, like, you know, that Digvijay had said, I will get Congress workers to help. You know, this big, and of course, that time AAP was nowhere near the scene. No one even had thought that there will be election. I'm talking 2006-7. Said the communists were helping us in states where they were possible. RTI was the main thing. RTI karo, kisi ka bhi help lena lo. That time, so they said that you come and teach our children for the UPSC for the last stage so that they can crack the exam. Arun was very uncomfortable with this. So he said, yeah, how do I get out of the car? I don't want to do this. I don't train RSS to get. He says, ठीक है, we'll hold a press conference that we are doing these exams to get RSS people into this thing and then I'll do it. Because he knew, he said, नहीं, अगर आपको इतना शोर मचाना फिर रहने ही दो. That's how he got out of it. So I'm saying first hand is not second hand. Yes, in those days, he was that love all, hate nobody. Why do we have to do this? Of course, Arvind today is very different from Arvind 20 years ago. But if you were to see it in the context of saying Sitaram can come as part of the coalition, you know, it was not, and that we will solve Kashmir crisis. Of course, the problem in politics is now you have to have a position in everything. But I see, you remember, right, when Prashant was ticked off that why do you talk about Kashmir? We have nothing to do on Kashmir. We are just wanting Jan Lokpal. So that is all I'm saying. The context is important, which is why when I saw Shekhar's video that this plan was hatched in the Vivekanand Foundation, I was really like, I don't get that. That's all.
So I think the criticism that was coming upsway at that point of time, and we were among at that time in that heady period among the strong critics, especially because of people like Arnazare. But two things. One was this failure to articulate on very important public positions. The second, and this has again continued to dog the AAP, is how do you engage with the question of caste in this country? And the AAP has failed miserably. One of the things that failed over the last 5 years is in the programs that they had specifically announced for Dalits without implementing them, withdrawing them, having people leave the party, because right from the beginning, from the years you were with Arvind Kejriwal, he was an anti-reservation man. He was going around talking about this idea of merit that continues to dog the mindset of the upper caste in this country.
That is something has changed now. There are many things
well,
he's changed.
He has to change, but it hasn't changed enough. So they outside Delhi and outside Punjab, why do they run into problem with politics? These are the two places where you can do viable politics without necessarily understanding caste structures, because Sikhism posits a very different kind of problem in Punjab. It has its own caste hierarchy, but it doesn't operate in the same rules that even Haryana does.
Which is why they played up the desecration of the Granth.
Many other things come into factors, and AAP has never been able to understand how you operate outside this area. How do you?
And with the loss of this election, this is something they really have to think now, which is in a way a good thing for the party. You have to think about identity issues. How do you actually respond to the BJP on the issue of communalism? Because we have not heard anything on that from them.
And the one
I mean, BJP says that Rohingyas are a problem. AAP says go to every school and check the Rohingya kids.
वो तो Bangladeshi ये कर रहे हैं. I mean, there is an echo. I mean, but the one last thing, and I think the Congress also has to learn that I actually am myself a strong opponent of the term freebies when it is used in the context of AAP. I think we are, post-liberalization, one of the stupidest countries in our sort of capitalist structure. Not Western Europe, not the US has this lack of security at the bottom for people. There is where the government does not intervene in any real measure to help out people, whether it's healthcare, education. These are not freebies. This is a segment that has stayed with AAP for good reason. These were not freebies. This is what governance is supposed to grant to
now,
people.
It is the poor that has remained overwhelmingly with AAP. It's just the middle class and the rich that have moved
so
away.
The income tax rebates are not freebies, but these things are consistently counted. I think these are necessary aspects. If the Congress has to fight these elections, it has to understand that there is a space for a social democrat formation, which it is not about shouting at Adani. It is what is this alternate vision you give to the large mass of these people in the country.
And where do your allies fit into that? Like, how do you guys come together actually in a cohesive way? State after state, there seems to be a complete logjam.
But I think that's one thing what Hartosh said Rahul has really failed at is, like, when Aditya Thackeray came and met Arvind, Akhilesh's view. People don't see either Rahul as a personal friend or Congress as an ideological friend. That is something Congress has failed to do to keep its friends friends.
If you are the biggest national opposition, you have to show the magnanimity. You can't reduce self. I am not saying AAP behaved very well with the Congress. It didn't. But then, if you are not different and you can't win elections, and AAP can fight elections a little better, then why? What are you as a party?
Before we, move on to UGC and other issues, on this Manipur thing, anyone has any, because it didn't get the kind of coverage that I thought it should get, because this immensely important thing of Ranveer via biceps became but what the BJP managed to pull off, very cleverly avoiding a midterm poll, and the optics, not to say that, losing an election in Manipur would have a huge, but BJP has got into the heads of people that we are always winning, winning, winning. So even losing a Manipur will make that narrative go. How they pulled this off and what it means, because today's paper says, I think some Methi groups are unhappy that it's governor's rule. I think today's Express has covered that. What are the implications of that, and why has the BJP, how have they convinced Biren Singh to resign? Because one theory also doing the rounds is that the court had asked for the forensic examinations of his voice and it has come like 95% accurate, and they will have to now submit that in court and court will say something. So that's why he resigned. How does this impact things on the ground in Manipur? Do you have some insight into that, or do you have a reporter there who's filled you in on anything?
Look, we've reported so far on the ground. I do not claim to have particular insights on how this is happening, but I mean, there is a larger problem that the BJP is running into and it's trying to solve through it. It basically ran, which is what it specializes in, an ethnic approach to a state, where you basically made what was an ethnic hoodlum of one community into the chief minister and bolstered him through a period when this violence was carried out in some senses. Yeah. Now, to withdraw this kind of support is not easy, because you tend to then lose the support of the majority that has given you that consolidation in a state where you did not have a presence. In this space, how do you operate when every normal norm of law and order, policing, governance had been violated? Your central forces, which is under Amit Shah, are clashing with forces that Biren is handling. So between local support and what is just the bare capacity of governance, they were falling into this trap. They are trying to manage it by getting Biren out in a way that does not alienate the BJP politically from the state. And they are trying to manage it to the best they can. But they have no other greater intentions of trying to necessarily make sense of a state where communities have to live with each other. That's never been their interest anywhere in the country. They live and thrive off conflict, as long as that conflict can be managed and kept at a level where they can gain from it.
But you have any take on Manipur? Will this governor's rule, positively impact things there? Will it help BJP? How does it help anyone in any way?
The assembly is in suspended animation. So suppose if they find a way out in having another chief minister, that's always a possibility now also. But I don't think they will go for it. The president's rule will extend till the next elections are held.
What's the rule? 6 months?
It would need to be ratified
Every 6 months.
So that is one. Second,
sorry, how long? What's the maximum it can go for?
6 months at a time, and then it would have to be ratified again.
No, but is there a limit, or it can keep getting ratified?
No, it has.
Acha, oh, okay.
Second, of course, the central leadership's support was withdrawn to Biren. So that is the reading people have of that's the obvious reading, and I think the political management of it is now going to be that anyway center was in control, so remove this phase, and the communities, the popular perception is that it was catering to a particular strongman of a community. So one way of doing it is to opposite the strongman and try to resolve the crisis, and second is that even remove that veneer and have the hand of a central control and try to do it in the interregnum. So that seems to be the obvious reading from my side.
BJP cookie MLAs had been in talks with Amit Shah. They'd been demanding this for a while. And I think there was a lot of pressure from within the BJP unit, which they just couldn't ignore anymore. But how does it help Manipur? It's in such a mess that I really don't know. I mean, there's complete division. We still have students who've not been able to go to Imphal. There's a complete separation of the hill areas and the valley. So I don't think you can fix this problem now with just
It only
politics
helps the
in mind.
BJP basically.
It requires real leadership and intent, which
we don't
I
have.
don't think we have.
But great, we have our next guest joining us. But before I introduce him, I want to remind you again, here's a QR code. Do contribute, pay to keep news free, because when the public pays, the public is served. We are an ad-free platform. We take ads from nobody. Future lovers, past enemies, past friends, future agnostics, nobody. We only depend on you. So please scan the QR code, gift a Valentine's subscription to someone you love or hate, and help journalism survive, because without that, democracy can't. So joining us on Google is our next guest, Professor Tanvir Aeijaz. Welcome, Tanvir.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me at the show.
My pleasure. I'll just introduce you with your titles, etc., to our audience. Tanvir is Associate Professor at Ramjas College, which was just behind my college, Hansraj, back in the day, Delhi University. He was appointed Honorary Lecturer Extraordinary at Stellenbosch University. I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, I'm sure. Tanvir?
Yeah, Stellenbosch.
Okay.
South Africa.
Yes, between 2021 and 23, he's Honorary Vice Chairman at Center for Multi-Level Federalism, New Delhi, and also writes regularly at The Express and Outlook magazine. You can check out his column. The link is in the show notes below on the UGC rules. It'll give you some sort of an idea of what exactly the context is and why this simmering tension is playing up. But before we get into the discussion, Tanvir, could you, by the way, in the studio, there's Anand, Manisha, Hartosh, Singh from the Caravan, and I'm Abhinandan.
Nice to meet you all, guys. Yeah.
If you could just briefly tell us, what is the proposal, what is the context, and what, in your view, will the implications be?
So this UGC draft regulation, has come at a time when, this whole in the backdrop of the idea that we need to have, sort of one curriculum across the country. We need to have one sort of education system across the country. So that's the larger take, on education. But the point is that education is in the concurrent list, right? And both the states and the center, they have their powers to legislate on it. And of course, states, in the states, we find state universities, and all those universities, they have their own acts. So, Kerala University Act, or for that matter, Bihar University Act, or whatever. So universities have their own acts. They pass their laws for running the universities. And central universities, of course, they are run by the center. But, why? It's very interesting and very fascinating also because earlier the education was in the state list, right? At the time of independence, when and most of the good, I would say, good federal countries also, you'll find education in the state list, right? Because in federal countries, of course, the states normally, they are formed in a way in which, of course, they have different culture, different language, and the idea of federalism is that how the pluralism can be accommodated in the larger modern nation state. So that's the idea of federalism. And of course, education being part of the state is considered because normally language and culture become so important, right? So in the backdrop where you see so many states having their own acts and states having their own universities, now the center, in the process of centralization, you must have seen that there is a tendency of centralization right? And what do I mean by centralization is that the institutions which are supposed to work, for, let's say, state level institutions which are supposed to work at the local level, institutions which are supposed to work independently of the central ministry or central government, they are finding it difficult for themselves to carry out their functions because there is a tendency of centralization through various institutional and intergovernmental mechanisms, right? Now, education, of course, is one of the ways in which the present government thinks that, we can control over the whole education system of the country.
Or the narrative
So
of what
this-
people are studying, what you're training them to be.
That's right. That's right. And in fact, education is a very important agenda of this political party, which has formed the government at the center, right? Because they want, sort of a brainwashing the students, right, at the school level, at the college level, at the university level. So this whole brainwashing idea, which is very prominent in psychology. If you read psychology, how does it happen? So this brainwashing has to be done at the school level. So therefore, you see a lot of changes. But I'm not getting into the school. School has a very different terrain. But of course, there are a lot of problems. What I'm trying to say is that at the university level, right, this whole idea of one nation, one curriculum, one framework, one sort of everything in a monistic form rather than in a plural form, that creates a problem for the whole idea of federalism, which of course is the basic structure of the constitution.
And education is impacted severely. So just to simply put for many of our audience that UGC, which is the University Grants Commission, what this says is that the governors, which are appointed by the center, will pick the VCs of universities. So therefore, the hiring basically similar to what LG was doing in Delhi on all departments. That is what this is going to do.
That's right.
And that has caused concerns. And I mean, I think sciences, how they are taught, where they are taught is pretty much the same. I think basically the tussle is for history. And if I can give a little context, I don't know whether it was initiated, whether it was swung by the MEA, at least from some people I've spoken to. The purpose, of Narendra Modi going to Marseille, I don't know how you pronounce it, France mein jahan bhi gaye the
Marseille.
was so that he can bring up Savarkar. That Savarkar had this brave escape from here. In fact, if you read Arun Shauri's book and Savarkar's own words, when he jumped from that ship, it was just about 10-12 feet to the... He just kind of waded there and got onto the road when a French cop caught him and said, "Who are you?" And then he said, "Take me to the police," etc. Whereas, the legend has it that he jumped off and he battled the waves and swam whatever, half a kilometer, 1 kilometer to the shore of Marseille and all. So it is creating this myth of Savarkar, and Savarkar has written that in his own words. No one has quoted him. So I highly recommend you read Arun Shauri's book on that. But the battle is for history. And the state universities appointed their own chancellors, which was coming under the state, or the chief minister had more influence, and now the governor will have more influence. That is what the battle is all about. Now, Anand, you have trained to be a bureaucrat, you are studying law. I mean, you would have a interesting technical perspective to this. What do you think are the pros and cons of this? And is the battle basically for history? Because science to same ही होगी ना, कहीं भी पढ़ाओ.
See, that
हमारा ये maths wizard है, PhD, you've done PhD in math or something.
Yeah,
right?
no. It's not only about history also. It's about science also. I mean, you have seen the science curriculum also. They have tried to, chop off a lot of things, which goes against their perception of rationality. So rationality...
That gobar cannot absorb radioactivity
They
of uranium.
are trying to gaumutrize science as well, basically.
okay.
And it has impact on medical research, on various research,
Right.
what your focus is, what you need to do.
Across,
Right.
it's about the knowledge system actually. I mean,
Right.
in the name of Indic knowledge system,
Absolutely.
all kinds of Renaissance understanding is being debunked. So I don't know whether they are postmodernist or ancient, what they are, but the point is that they are not accepting what modernity is, what rationality is, what Renaissance talked about. All these things are being debunked. So that's the major problem. But I think the question of UGC draft regulation concerns more about control through governors. So I think that was perhaps I think we should move towards that discussion, right?
Anand.
Yeah, so I think on the constitutional question, there are two things. First is, as Professor Aeijaz pointed out, that in the concurrent list entry 25, It's both state. Since it is concurrent list, both center and state can legislate on say education, which is includes school education, higher education, medical and means technical education, but that is subject to entry 66 of the union list, article 246. So that is subject to it, and that is in union list. That gives the center the edge over it. So
They're using that basically.
Yes. So the higher education from the time of the promulgation of the constitution has been is in the union list in entry 66, union list article 246, and the concurrent list, which Professor Aeijaz rightly pointed out, that it was through 42nd Amendment in 1946 that it came.
76, yeah.
1976, it was during emergency that, in fact, in the Madras High Court, Tamil Nadu government recently went to, and it said that this amendment in 1976, it has tilted the scale to the disadvantage of states. So
Yeah, that's right.
yeah. So
In fact, 42nd Amendment was a process towards centralization.
yes.
Right. If you look at the contents of 42nd Amendment, it was all indicating that we are moving towards more centralization. So the whole idea of, but very interestingly, education. I mean, I don't know how much higher education, in which way, in the union list. Of course, it's all about maintenance, but surprisingly, 73rd Amendment, local self panchayati raj system and municipalities, you'll find that the education is listed over there at the local level, right? In the 11th and in the 12th schedule, education is mentioned. So the idea is that education can be there at the local level, right? And at the central level, but not at the state level. In the state list, you will not find even a single item calling education. So they have picked it up, and it's process of centralization. But through governor is subterfuge.
I think the misuse of governor is always been a case, but it's reached a level which at least I haven't seen in the living memory. But yeah, finish your thought, Anand.
So what's the current rules are draft rules. They have been put, I think, for a month for public comments and feedback. So what it is saying is this, that not directly governor, but governor would say appoint a search committee out of which one would be the Raj Bhavan say, that is governor, and the second would be a UGC person, and the third one would be from the university, that is, you can assume state government. So
no, not the state. State's role in appointing of governor has been completely
Vice
taken
Chancellor
away.
even.
We're talking
So the search committee. So the search committee is the chairperson is the governor, as chancellor or visitor. 3-member search committee is the chairperson, right? The other person is the UGC chairman appointee, which means UGC.
Center.
And the third person is the former vice chancellor. Now, if you are appointing vice chancellors, so it means that it is the central vice chancellor which would be recommending. So it's complete control.
His successor,
The state
correct.
government has no control over it.
Third would come from the university anyway. So it's anyway the central veto is there. So it can be 2-1 even if the third person doesn't agree.
No. It's 3-0. It's 3-0. Because the vice chancellor, former vice chancellor, is also handpicked by the central government only.
I concede. Let us say 3-0. Even if it's not 3-0, it's 2-1.
Let's say. I agree. Because at the end of the day, the vice chancellor is from the center only.
Right.
So this is a position now, and the second thing that they have done is liberalizing the criterion for the VC appointment. So like
need not be an academic.
You need not be an academy. You can be a public administrator.
You can be Vekani
you can be from industry. So what they are trying to do is that the stated objective is that the modern education or the modern knowledge economy needs people for skill enhancement, more employability. And of course, in the past, we had administrators at VCs. Suppose, say, Zamia, you had Nazib Zang, and even you had Lieutenant General Jaki from military as Vichy in late 90s.
That's right.
And and in Bihar, you have many bureaucrats who have been university VCs. So, and there also that has been a bone of contention. So, that is something not new. Also, on the question of political neutrality, of course, from the very beginning, as an ideological project, from early 20th century, the Hindutva political forces were very serious about elections, even if they were weak. And also on the battle of ideas. So, two things, they're very serious. And it also, in the right of center space, from in the 70s, in the same decade when this centralization came through 42nd Amendment of school education, there has been a criticism that the education minister from 71 to 77, S. Nurul Hasan, he was accused of pushing the left inclined agenda in university curriculum and also in the career advancement of many academics. So the right of center, one was their original ideological project, and second was this backlash that we have to somehow even this out. So both have combined this.
Right. Hartosh, you have anything to say on this?
Look, none of this is surprising. And the problem is it is headed in one direction, because I think in that Aeijaz and Vardhan are both in agreement. This is exactly what the right wanted. This is what always the right has signaled. This is what they've told us they will do. So we should not be surprised that they're doing. The consequences of what this means and where it leads us is what we have to understand. Because, yeah, you can say the left did this. But there is a substantive difference between the qualifications and the quality of the people the left picked and what these guys are picking, because they just do not, despite a century of trying to toe this line, they don't have academically qualified people with the right credentials from wherever they want. So they are trying to dismiss the credentials itself. They are trying to create people who are basically not just pawns, but they are intellectual dwarfs which will do exactly what the central government says. They don't have the capability of running a subject. As I was saying, they have run away from the very idea of what modernity is. Whatever you call them, they do not have the substantive ability to set down a book. They have been in power for 10 or 11, 12 years. And there is so much incentive to support them and be on their side. Yet they can't produce a single person of any intellectual depth who can stand in public space and actually openly debate issues or openly write about things or pass a book that matches the credibility of anything you put out.
But cinema, like they've got Kashmir Files, India Files.
Absolutely, they've got they've got files on everybody, including their own cinema. So this is really the probability.
Swapan had written a piece on why that is. He acknowledged that the right does not have that intellectual depth for someone who can come up with that, but he had said because it has never been allowed to develop. He had that excuse. I don't buy it, but I should put that. But because decades of liberal, left wing, क्या कहते हैं? King gave patronage has given rise to the Rovera Thapar.
In these 11 years, they've had their universities, they've had their people. They still have to have somebody like Swapan who did all his learning from the left and is regurgitating it to wag his tail for the right, basically,
Aeijaz, sorry, Tanvir, you were saying?
No. What I'm trying to say is that I think there is some pressure from outside academy, right? That please appoint us, but we do not have degrees, we do not have qualifications. But we are very close to you. We have worked for you, for your elections, for your mobilization. We want to get into the system.
Yeah.
Right. Now, that is the whole problem. So therefore, in the name of making it more open system, etc., the government is coming up with these rules. But let me tell you, the problem, how I call this, I wrote this word there in my piece, but that was edited. The manner in which government, I use this word suborn, right? Suborn, I hope, through bribery, through subterfugery, it's a legal word, which means that you're trying to change things, right? You are working on procedures. It would appear that it is right, but actually it is suborn, right? It's not right. It's constitutionally, legally. Now tell me, give me an answer. And anybody, for that matter, anybody can give an answer. I would be very happy to know. Of course, I have studied so much on the constitution, etc. UGC is a regulatory body, right? And in a federalism, state government is very much like you have a parliamentary system at the center, you have a parliamentary system, assembly system that you can call it as at the state level, right? Now, state makes a law from its assembly, which is backed by people, right? So when assembly makes a law, it's backed by people. It has the legitimacy of the people, right? But UGC every day, now and then, coming up with laws which completely violates the acts which are made by the state. But UGC doesn't have any locus standi in terms of political accountability.
Tanvir, we are at
regulatory bodies. Regulatory bodies, if the government seriously want to come up with a law, they should discuss this in the parliament.
But Tanvir, you are at beginner level right now. Supreme Court is having to tell the governor of how he has to deal with bills that have been passed by the Tamil Nadu Assembly.
Governor,
we are at that level where they're having to tell the governor, bhai, aise nahi hota, aise hota hai.
If you get into this gubernatorial office, the history, the polity and everything, it's an independent office. It's an independent office. It has nothing to do with political party. It has nothing to do with the central government. They have to see, the governor, has to see that the politics and the polity and the procedures are being followed. That's it, nothing. And does not have the discretionary power. You're giving all functions and powers to the governor.
Yeah, I think that is established clearly. The Supreme Court having to reiterate that is unfortunate. But I just want to, before I come to Manisha, a little anecdote. I'm not saying I'm an academic or I should even deserve to be there, but for whatever reason, I was in a meeting on an advisory board of a university. And there were two people who were also on the advisory board who are affiliated to the Baba Ramdev organization. So it was a very long and boring meeting. I was like, why the fuck am I here? And there were no snacks that were without sugar. All the snacks had sugar. I'm diabetic and I wanted to eat. So I kept waiting.
Organic honey.
Not honey also, by the way. That's a myth.
Honey.
It's a myth.
All the ghee and honey is all mixed up.
In that meeting, there was a long discussion on, this university should be world class on medical issues. Like Harvard Medical School, this medical school, Sloan Kettering, jo bhi hoti hai. There's some Sloan Kettering or something in New York. And then they said we have to open a very robust world-class homeopathy department. So I was like, how the fuck are you going to be world-class? You have homeopathy department in your medical school. Because homeopathy is anti-science. And if your advisors are affiliated to the organization that has claiming to cure COVID, AIDS, homosexuality.
Give you a male born also.
What the fuck will this university achieve? And how are you even thinking of being world-class?
I think it's because of your diabetes, you have a problem with homeopathy.
You just look into the research projects. Crores and crores are given to teachers, to researchers who want to do research on gobar gas. One of my colleagues, she teaches in chemistry, she got huge amount of money to do research on this. So
Tanvir, forget research, 60% funding was to be provided for startups that would create products from cow urine. I don't know if you remember a few years ago. Manisha, you were saying?
No, so I just want to stress on the point that it's not just about curriculum, academics, history, geography, science. They actually want to shape individuals within university. We've been traveling throughout central and state universities from 2022 every election. The kind of complaints we hear, students tell us what RSS-backed VCs are up to. There's a complete crackdown on protests in universities. And protests for even things within the university. You want better infrastructure, you want CCTV somewhere, you want library infrastructure. And we're recording this show at a point where yesterday I think police entered Jamia.
Yeah.
Police was called in because students were apparently doing unlawful protests.
Picked them up for more than 10, 12, 14 hours without explanation. Students within the university.
Can't. Kurukshetra University students tell us that, look, when we want to call someone who's from, an anti-BJP, we're not given any halls. LSR students are saying that, we don't have a feminist reading club in a, women's college. We had to call Nivedita Menon and she had to talk to us outside the campus premises. So there's just so much suppression across colleges and state universities. And I think the idea is to really shape individuals like the Galgotia University chaps that we saw, right? Just Urban Maxwell, hi. Don't think, don't be an irritant, listen. And unfortunately, we do live in a society where there's a lot of, acceptance for this sort of a model student. Parents will also say, why do you want to get into a protest? Why should you be sitting there? Why should you question? Why should you think?
The reason why they want to appoint vice chancellor either from military, army, or a bureaucrat who can crack down on these students' protests, dissent, any kind of association, any kind of union. So that is perhaps the larger idea. Or you have a businessman who can just simply, sell the whole university, privatize the whole
Cost
university.
benefit analysis, like Trump is running a
For
protection
a
racket.
lot of academics who now supposedly support the right, this is also a cover-up for their own inadequacy as researchers. Actually, a good case study should be, and we'll get into some time or the other, is our old friend Anand Ranganathan, whose own science is now being questioned on very strong grounds. But nobody will raise those questions. And this is true of a lot of these people sitting as historians, social scientists, etc., who cater to the right. All sorts of charges which are very serious will never be examined within academia because they are affiliated with the current regime of the day.
That's right.
And the output that they are producing does not measure up to any publishable material in any world-class publication or journal. They have to create their own journals because they've suddenly decided that the whole world is against them.
We
in
have
some
our own
sense.
Nobel
Against
Prize.
India.
Yeah, so this mediocrity, celebration of mediocrity through the Sangh, which is what we are seeing, is really the reality.
Which
today.
extends to art, cinema,
Science,
stand-up
everything,
comedy. In fact,
everything.
Manisha had internally that the latest revenue model for even stand-up comics or podcasters is you got to suck up to the government. That's the revenue model. So if they say this one's bad, this one's bad. Even if you had said something nice about
And the
that
response
person.
to that will be, but 15 years ago that happened and this happened. You pick these instances, that instances, and try and balance it out. But still, there's an output. I'm not saying necessarily the best thing, but was good history written. There was good social science done, etc. This man has no understanding. Even the ICERs which were created, Modi wants them to be self-financing. You were cutting down funding even for science, pure science institutions. How do you expect pure science institutions to be generating their own money? This at a time when we want to be Vishwa Guru, AI, etc.
Right. Anand, you have something to say before we give Tanvir the last word and say goodbye?
Another, coming back to this these rules, another proposal has been to do away with the silos of disciplinary compartmentalization, that if you have your master's or graduation in other subjects, you can also apply for professorship. And so I think the net examination, which was the eligibility, which still is the eligibility examination for teaching in colleges. Now, it gave an option. Earlier also there was an option that if suppose you were having a master's in, say, history, you can, and if you are confident enough in, say, political science or sociology, or economics, you can write that exam in economics. So that was at the net level. Now, in some sections of university have welcomed this, that yes, if you have, say, competence in other discipline, you can come. But there have been some reservations also that may not reflect. You may have knowledge, but not the academic discipline or years of training in it. So
to apply for professorship, basically.
yes,
supplies.
so that is also one area.
And when you said these rules that have been drafted, for public consultation, they don't have to get clearance from the Parliament. Okay, they can just be notified. Or do they have to get, it's not like an amendment, right?
No, it's a regulatory body. It's not an amendment.
Right. So it need not have any.
So I am what I'm saying that is also a proposal. It's good or bad. I am not saying
I
that.
see.
So for fluidity of say or breaking the silos of compartmentalization of disciplines, it may be a good idea. But also who have spent years in training themselves in a particular discipline. So they may feel
that disincentivizes
and they may feel
thoroughness.
shortchanged in their career options.
Right. So Tanvir. Sorry. Go ahead.
Also, on the question of shaping individual, my experience does not, because I have been a student of Central University. I travel to different universities also. So at different points there, at the beginning of this 21st century, and now also I am a student. So then also Professor Aeijaz would be knowing, say, Professor Ish Narayan Mishra, very left-inclined teacher of political science that Mr. Aeijaz also teaches. So he used to tell me that all the cats and dogs of all the professors have become professors. So there was a patronage system. There were teachers who would take you to the sidelines and say that I am having a Naxal training camp or in Muzaffarpur, could you accompany me? So this is what I heard then. So it is so they would not say Naxal, but they would say something similar that we have activists, left activists, we want to train them on. So but I could get that. So I could so. It is not as if the indoctrination machine was not working then. So, or the patronage system was not working then. It was working, and it is my first experience. I'm not saying that I heard it from a group of sample, a journalistic, say, observation of 15, 20 students, and I talked to them, and I drew this conclusion. So, it has been maybe the intensity with more power to the current.
It's become more.
The intensity has become more. But will that shape and
so what you're saying is tit for tat policy. No, that's not true at all. That's not true at all. Yeah.
So before we say
anything
bye,
else,
Tanvir, any recommendation for our audience that could enrich their lives?
So I'm reading 2 books at this point of time. One, of course, I have to review. I review, in various places, Business Standard and Biblio and all. So one book I'm reviewing is by Professor Zoya Hassan, which deals with democracy. The name of the book is Democracy on Trial. Right? It's a very, very interesting book, very fascinating book, that how this whole majoritarian politics is playing out, and the autonomy of the institutions are sort of emasculated. And then, what your panelist was talking about, that how the dissent and the critical thinking and all these things are being eroded. It's a good book, which deals with backsliding of democracy. So the larger thing is about, we are hearing about backsliding of democracy. But the another one, which I think everybody should read at this age, is about, by the name of the author is Yannis Varoufakis, and the name of the book is Techno-Feudalism, right?
That's a former Greek finance minister, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely, that's right. So that's a very fascinating book, that how the markets are changing, capital is changing, and how capital itself is becoming, killing the capital. So
yeah, he's an interesting
it's a
guy.
very fascinating book. I suggest everyone who's interested in understanding this larger macro change which is happening at the technological level. So where it is leading to, and how we are moving. We are moving, or we are regressing towards feudalism. Yeah.
Right.
One thing about capitalism and this university and the state. So Adam Smith, the godfather of, say, laissez-faire
Hmm.
and state non-intervention. Even he favored a state to be the patron of education. So it was one exception that he made. Yeah.
Right. But thanks,
No,
Tanvir.
no, that was the patron client actually, because university was seen as subservient to some patron, either king, and then of course after king, so some power. That's what Adam Smith talked about, right?
I also
Point.
think that it is time to stop quoting a Marx or an Adam Smith, because I think a moderate postgraduate in economics would have a better insight on political philosophy today, purely because they have had the benefit of observing how things have worked out over the last 80, 100 years. Like Adam Smith's idea of what capital or free market should do was theoretical. Today's economist can tell you what happened 10 years ago when water was privatized in, say, Philippines, or in Colombia. Or, what I'm saying is, we keep quoting these guys as if they were gods. They were brilliant because they could predict many things. They could predict many things that no one had seen.
No, but
But today, to say that Adam Smith's view on market was more informed than any economist today, I think is a bit
You
much.
should make that the first word,
no,
and
they
then
laid
we'd have to
down-
argue
I
for
think- I
hours on
think-
this instead of ending on this note.
They laid down the framework actually, so that's what precisely.
Everyone from
See, the market, cannot operate without the understanding of Adam Smith or Ricardo.
No, I'm saying
or
it can.
Keynes,
Of course,
etc.
you can. But what I'm saying is that that they said this, therefore it must be true.
No, not
It's
at
not.
all.
I mean, 100 years ago,
It's
for
the way in
example,
which you look at it.
every economist worth their salt 20 years ago or 30 years ago would tell us the benefits of free trade. Everybody had a view. 30 years later, Trump down the line, everybody say, oh, actually, we were wrong on world trade.
But it's important to know the views.
Of course, but
I mean,
what I'm
that's all.
saying is, but for them, it was predictive and speculative. For today's economist, it's real, yeah. It's not. They're not imagining it. They've seen it.
I don't know what was your
Well,
what was your trigger, because people say things, give historical references for trivia
Yeah, of course.
to add to conversation. That
No,
is
I
not to say
completely
that he was God or something
No,
else.
I agree, but
Economics as a discipline was created to give jobs to bad mathematicians.
says the mathematician.
But let us.
But thanks. Thank you, Tanvir. Pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. Bye. And before we move on to the emails, let's get the last word and recommendation from Hartosh sir as well. What do you have for our audience, Hartosh?
Well, two things I also want to take up the last thing Anand had said. That's the question of comparisons between the past and the present. And what is missing strongly from that comparison is the question of the increase of mediocrity that I've been raising. Yes, there were problems then. By the way, the people reporting on those problems then or during Congress rule now are the same people who are accused of being anti-national. Actually, I can't tell my Sanghi friends because I don't have Sanghi friends. I refuse to have Sanghi friends any longer. I am not hoping to fall in love with them ever. But
Not even on Valentine's Day.
But the fact is, when they will go out of power, they will come to us with their grievances. They will not go to an Arnab Goswami, because
That is
Arnab
true.
Goswami will be doing exactly what he's doing to this government, to the next government. The only place they will have to actually talk about independence and questions and examination of governments will be with us. Yes, and this is the mediocrity of the right I talk about. There is no such representative on the right. I can challenge you today, guarantee this, that there is no right-wing journalist who can be called a journalist despite 10 years of power of this government, who will do the job of asking questions of the government and who will not succumb as soon as a liberal government comes to power to saying something
I
else.
completely
That
agree
is
with
the
you.
difference that we are talking about of moral integrity, of educational integrity or integrity of professions that the right eminently lacks.
I agree with you.
That is
and
one of the
I
most
have-
important things.
I have made that point on the whole a progressive mindset as opposed to the conservative mindset, is that the intervention, like the RTI days, the UPA, the morchas were always led by the so-called Prashant Bhushans and the communists like me only. There was, and I will never take his name
You're a
because
communist?
I'm apparently. So many people say so. But I have said this on the Hafta before. every time I'd make a panel discussion, I'd get a call from him saying, ye bolna, say this. I said, why don't you come? We don't have enough. Pagal hai. Sarkar keema bana degi. Today he sits on panels abusing, using the vilest language. He don't have the fucking guts to even come to a... So you're absolutely right. When the regime changes, there will not be a single right-wing journalist or historian willing to put his... Because cowardice is part of the Savarkar DNA.
Absolutely.
And that is... And I completely
Savarkar
agree
was
with
a complete coward. This apologist of the worst kind
I completely
from
agree
British
with you
rule.
on
But
that.
let's forget all that. Let's come to the recommendation. The first, I'm sorry, in all the news there, I think we have done in the Caravan, I think a very important story. It's a follow-up to our story that was removed from our magazine on the Kashmir killings in Poonch. This time we have carried a story of this killing was not done at the OIC level, the brigadier level, but the brigadier, etc., have testified in the court of inquiry that two generals were sitting and directing these operations
My
of the
God,
torture
that's
and
big.
killing of the Pooch. The two generals we are talking about, one continues to be a general heading the the RR in Kashmir. The second one is today the head of the IMA. This is the message that we are sending to the country, that the training of the IMA is being done by generals like this, and we put it out again. It's there, available in print, available on our website. I think that's a story that needs to be followed, picked up, and spoken about.
It's by
Because
Jatinder Tur.
Jatinder Tur, absolutely. And it is something we need to focus on. This is what we are coming to institutionally, where from the very top you're giving sanction to something like this, to your own citizens.
Yeah.
I mean, it
And
is...
privately in Kashmir, people within the government, there was nothing wrong with that Caravan story that went down. Everyone admitted privately the
even
fact that
today-
all facts are correct in this report.
And so are the facts now, because we are basing it on the own records of the people involved in this, not the civilians, but the
And if,
officials
if
themselves.
they've testified, that's
The testimony there. And in the removal orders, in the courts, the government has not said or pointed out to a single line or single word in error in our story. And that story continues to exist in print. So what it is only because they've created these digital laws meant for censorship, not for journalistic conduct or the truth, that this has happened. The second book I would recommend is one that I'm reading now, is Peggy Mohan's on linguistics on mother tongues and fatherlands, which is fascinating. It is her attempt to search for a language X, the language that may have been spoken in the Indus Valley region at some point of time, through the grammatical structure of languages that exist today. And it is fascinating because there's an attempt to do a whole hogwash through archaeology and DNA, etc. I know the people who do the DNA research who tell me in private what they are forced to say in public is all bunkum, but they don't again have the courage, basically. But this book is interesting because it is open-ended. It raises many important questions. Among them, this fascinating question, which should delight you, of the kinship between Punjabi and Tamil that bypasses the Hindi belt.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I would say...
Is it about me? Okay, fantastic. I should read that. Yeah, in fact, I should gift that to my entire family. So thank you so much, Hartosh. Do the links for the stories are in our show notes, and also do contribute to the Caravan. They also take subscriptions. The link will be in the show notes. Support journalism and don't leave it to either billionaires or millionaires or even sarkari ads. Take control of journalism, because only then it will serve the public. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy Valentine's Day to Hartosh. Here's a QR code again for the joint subscription on Valentine's Day. Gift it to someone you love. Now we only entertain the emails of our subscribers. So if you want to mail us, you have to be a subscriber. You can mail us at podcasts@newslaundry.com. I repeat, podcasts@newslaundry.com, or click on the link in the show notes. A window will open out and you can give in your feedback there. If it's more than 150 words, only the first 150 words will be read. That is our rule. So we please request you to adjust. Manisha, we have 30 emails. So let's start with last week's, when we'll come to the rest later with time.
So Agita says, on the issue of representation of upper caste faculty, along with the caste census of faculty in central institutions like IITs and central universities across the country, The Hindu has frequently covered the issue on how very few lower caste and other caste people were there in such institutions. My concern is that the underrepresentation of faculty from lower and other castes may be affecting PhD admissions. However, I may be mistaken, and it would be helpful to investigate whether the issue truly impacts PhD admissions or if other factors contribute to the situation in these prestigious institutions. Mohammed Salman says, hi team, both Hafta and Charcha did a superb deep dive into the Kumbh stampede and I have nothing to add. But can we please question the estimates of pilgrim numbers a bit more aggressively? Are we that bad at arithmetic that we believe it when someone tells us that 45 crore people will circulate in and out of a small stretch of land over a month in a massive state whose resident population is half that number? Who counts these visitors? What are the mechanisms to estimate that on the most important Snan days, 4 to 5 crore people are going to be there in just one day? The first thing state fudges before bandobast or administration is numbers. While cultural, national, religious pride are important, we shouldn't take it.
Yeah, this is something I haven't seen an explainer, and we've discussed this also, that
How
how do they figure that out, and is there any way to check?
To my mind, though,
In 2001 Kumbh, so not only the Indian media but the foreign media, I think it was in NYT or BBC. So they did a report on 2001 Kumbh, and they said that today's Prayagraj is the most populated city in the world. So and the estimate was that around 5-6 crore people are there. Also in the same report, and he was very lauded for his. So the district magistrate of Allahabad was, I remember the strapline, the world's most powerful event manager. The district magistrate of Allahabad.
Also, it's not just people from the state who come, right? It's from, I mean, this time Kumbh, and this is a factor
From the south also.
for social media also, of the kind of advertising also. A lot of people come from everywhere. My point with fact checking this is, maybe an explainer is good, but I think fact checks also have to have an end to what are we trying to say. Kumbh is very popular. It is the largest gathering. So maybe it's not 45 crore, but
yeah, I mean, it's
it's
a question of trivia.
Really, it's a question of trivia to me. It's not like such a, because it won't negate the actual fact that it is large.
Right.
I mean, that is not being made out. Okay, Siddharth says, this shit show at Kumbh took me into an Instagram rabbit hole for 30 hours, 1.5 hours, which turned into a couple of sleepless nights. This re-emphasizes the need for Newslaundry in the current situation. I'm very, very proud subscriber now more than ever, and will upgrade my subscription as soon as I get a job. Yeah,
Thank
there
you,
were
Siddharth.
lots of Instagram reels and people talking about the bheed and everything. In fact, it's crazy how it works. Even I went down this rabbit hole of Kumbh reels. Like for one day, I was only seeing Kumbh reels on my Instagram. Vatsal says, saw these posters in New Delhi constituencies near Khan Market. There were a few e-rickshaws too carrying the same message. Whatever be the election results, you can't beat the creativity here. I'm lost for words. This is the final boss of propaganda. So we can show this image right now.
Posters.
On the screen, it says, Deshtrohi Kejriwal ka Ameriki Naxali Isai Atangwad.
So it's basically everything. It's a bit like what Newsman and Newslaundry were accused of, that we are seceding south by taking help of Khalistan and USAID, and so like everyone is, it's a magic coalition.
लेखक इज मुकेश जैन. लेखक ने अपना नाम भी लिखा है बाय द वे इस पोस्टर में. 1000 पुस्तक का मूल्य.
Oh, they have to give their name.
The printer has to.
He's from IIT Roorkee.
The printer has to give his name to election posters. I think there was a controversy in last Lok Sabha election regarding this.
Yeah, I remember that. You have to take ownership of the
He
poster.
can't be from IIT Roorkee. I think he's just maybe studied there.
Maybe.
I don't know. Okay. Abhishek Jadhav says, hello Abhinandan, Manisha, Shardul and Raman sir. I've been coming across the news of Ram Rahim getting parole again and again. In recent news, he again got parole for 20 days. I would love to see some stories on why and how the court has been granting parole to a rape convict and what flaws does the judiciary have. Maybe this topic can also be part of the podcast at Hafta. It's disturbing to see no progress on bail plea for activist Omar Khalid and how courts blatantly grant parole to convicts of serious offences. UAPA is a law that just doesn't allow for. But even so, I think Omar Khalid's case is specific because even Siddiq Kapan did walk out after 800 days.
Yeah, but of course, laws these days, like today, Bela Trivedi, the Supreme Court judge, has overruled an earlier judgment of an ED
bail in ED cases.
Saying that, so yeah, it's...
Nidhi Shah says, I'm a new subscriber and a doctoral student in the US, deeply passionate about Indian politics. Many tell me to focus on life here, but I feel out of place. I want to return and contribute to change. Despite its struggles, India is my country, but what kind of a nation are we if we can't even ensure clean air and water? These are basics basic rights, yet they remain luxuries. Our constitution grants us the right to life, but what is life without breathable air? I contributed 500 rupees to the campaign, not much. That's more than enough for us.
Thank
Your
you,
support
Nidhi.
and
This
your-
campaign will snowball. We are confident.
But I'm tired of politics that prioritizes propaganda over over people. A PM who avoids press conferences yet thrives on self-promotion. Don't we deserve better?
Yes, we do deserve better, as does everybody else, but such is life. But thank you so much. This, campaign, the QR code is there. Get involved. We have to clean our area. We at least have to make sure the next generation has cleaner lungs than us. Yeah.
Dheeraj says, hi, I had previously written to you using this form itself so it would not have crossed any word limit, but that letter was not read or even acknowledged. It was about Anand's defense of Election Commission using too many elections as excuse. At the same time, I had written to Awful and Awesome about making video of recommendations, each from NL for New Year. That was read. So there's bias in our
That's a
reading.
misquote.
I think Dheeraj, we read your email, but anyway, go ahead, Anand.
No, that's a misquote. Too many elections I used as in my articulation of the electoral fatigue. Election Commission I didn't defend nor attack. I said that like any say assertion or any argument, if Election Commission's views are not taken into account and version of events not taken account, for me it's not a complete picture. That's my point. I think and for that goes for any policy or decision or any issue regarding, if a government version is missing in any criticism, so it doesn't give me a whole picture as a report. That was my point.
So
I
we'll
can
do
read
few
three
more
quick letters.
emails. We can read a few more. I'll just
Okay.
read a couple. I'll read Rohini Banerjee says, hello, loved the discussion with Govindraj Ethiraj on the budget. But what intrigued me most was Manisha's question on whether police states led to strengthened economies. Another interesting case study is South Korea, which faced harrowing wars, colonization, dictatorship, and economic crises, and yet has re-emerged as a major economic power due to strong government control. I find the growth story fascinating. They too have a similar toxic corporate work culture like Indian corporate sector, yet they are thriving more than us. Well, Rohini, right now, South Korea is going through their own issues, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Maybe we should do a let's talk about on this.
On Korea?
I'll be very curious. No, on this question
That's
of
right. Dhruv Kumar says, to be under the 150 word limit, I'll keep my question brief. I understand why you are not taking ads from political parties, but why can't you accept ads from brands like any music concert fan as applicable brand? How will it limit your independence? Kindly elaborate. Because Dhruv, brands will not give ads to anyone who's a little bit controversial. If you go by ad logic, then there is a tendency of wanting to go for more clicks because brands only give ads based on how many clicks you get, in which case you will have to do stuff that is more clickbaity rather than investigative, and data shows ranty opinion pieces get more clicks than ground reporting. So we've discussed this at length in one of the earlier podcasts. The link will be in the show notes below. Manisha, any other emails? We
Yeah.
can't read all, but we'll read as many. But we'll come to the rest also later, by the way, in a future episode.
Yeah. So I'll read some short letters. Shivani Yadav says, hi guys. This is regarding the request some people made for subtitles to add on NL Hafta episodes when someone starts speaking in Hindi Urdu. If it's not financially feasible for you guys, then I'd be happy to offer my services free of charge. I'm a professional translator and subtitler. Let me know if you'd be interested.
Wow,
So we should definitely
Shivani,
get in touch with you.
That is a very...
Maybe not for Hafta, but we do need subtitle help.
Yeah,
So we should
Shivani,
get
that
in
is a wonderful offer. Thank you so much. See, this is Newslaundry subscribers. So many of you offer vehicles, homes, services, tech services such as translation. Yes, Shivani, we will get in touch with you. Thank you.
Anonymous says, I've been following your content for a long time and I'm a big fan of your reporting and business model. Surviving and thriving for 13 years on a subscription model is truly commendable. I have a suggestion for a possible long-form story regarding the slow yet sustained land acquisition by the Adani Group in Mumbai. This issue extends beyond the Dharavi redevelopment and includes both commercial and residential projects. For years, the state government has amended housing and land rules to enable the Adani Group to dominate Mumbai's real estate. Changes in TDR and FSI regulations are steering the city's development towards an Ahmedabad-like model, with the Adani Group emerging as the sole or most dominant builder and landowner. I believe this warrants an in-depth investigative report. Great idea.
Very good idea.
Write to me at manisha@newslaundry.com because you're anonymous here. And we shall put a reporter on this. Could be an interesting piece to look at.
Hmm.
Supportive critique. I like how they've put a caveat to that. For the last couple of weeks, Hafta has seemed more like Abhinandan interviewing a guest rather than a conversation with all panelists. There was hardly any inputs or questions by others on the panel. Abhinandan could probably do single-person interview as a separate podcast. He clearly has a lot to say. Love the NL work and happy 13th, guys.
Very polite way of saying, Sala chup kar thoda. Message received, milord.
Chirag says in Hafta 523, Manisha posed an excellent question that she couldn't direct to Govind Raj as he had to leave. Her hypothesis was that Vietnam is doing economically well because of being a police state. It's hard to answer the question in 150 words, but I would recommend How Asia Works by Joe Studwell. The book explores how countries like South Korea, Taiwan, China, and post-war Japan achieved rapid growth. Part of Studwell's explanation aligns with Manisha's hypothesis. He emphasizes the role of active government interventions and authoritarian leadership during the early stages of development, followed by a transition to free market policies once exports become globally competitive. He shows this through the lens of growth of companies like Hyundai, Sony, and TSMC, which make it a fun read. His explanation also makes you realize where India went wrong in its industrial policy and how to fix it. Okay, I shall definitely read it.
Yeah, it seems very sensible because a lot of people have suggested it depends on what phase of growth you are at. Yeah. So I think we'll read the rest later. We have still about how many? 19 emails left. Abhishek, yours is Aditi, Laws, Ujjwal, Mahendra, many of you. We'll come to these, but today we've gone a little over time. So thank you for your feedback. Please keep it coming. But we'll, like we normally do, after every 5 or 6 episodes, we'll have one longer episode where we make sure we finish all the emails. But before we finish, Manisha, your recommendation for the week?
So we did not discuss the beer biceps / Samay Raina issue. But I think if you're keen on knowing about it or understanding what's behind the outrage, and if you want some good commentary on this, you must read Anurag Verma's piece on Newslaundry. There's no formula to be safe in India. I think he packs in everything really well in this piece, so do check that out. I'm reading a book on the Chola Empire by Anirudh Kanasetti, who I'm going to be interviewing next week. So maybe that's my recommendation. It's quite pacey and interesting.
Thank you. Anand, yours?
Yes, since we talked about university, so I am going back to the mother of universities, Nalanda University. So, mother, maybe some people, but actually in last 2 years, even Western scholarship has been giving very convincing replies to yes, Nalanda was the mother of universities, and that's why Abhay K, who has written a book on Nalanda University, how it transformed the world. He says that in 2 years ago, if you said that Nalanda gave the idea of an university to the world, you would be laughed at, but now the West is accepting it because of the new evidence. His book, of course, my recommendation is 2-3 things I would like to add to that. The idea, one is the Greek, like academias of Plato and this, but it was not developed in a multidisciplinary dormitory form or the courtyard structure that you see in Western universities, great universities like Oxford and Cambridge. But Nalanda was a dormitory system, 9-story library system, and courtyard and thousands of scholars, also external, and it was not only about philosophy, but also about mathematics, science, multidisciplines, linguistics, all. So the idea that multiple disciplines could be taught in a campus with residence, with hostels, with library, it first now came to West, say Asia, say or a bit closer in Baghdad in form of madrasas. Madrasas, because people Nalanda trained people came there and they established with the same concept madrasas.
Wow.
And it further traveled. Even William Dalrymple says that it further traveled from Nalanda to Afghanistan and to Europe, and we see great Western universities, Oxford, Cambridge, coming on the same Nalanda model. And it is now generally accepted. Now, it is not a laughing matter of, say, boast of past glory. It is being by renowned historians, it is being acknowledged. Also, the Aryabhata's Zero came from that Nalanda training, which transformed the world of computation and calculation. So the modern science is based on this binary system of 0 1. Means information science, means the fillip it gave to, also the number system. So I think Indians have not been very aware of the how great the contribution Nalanda made, and it is known in fragments. But what Abhay does is that he tells the complete story. He is a diplomat. He is a 2003 batch Indian Foreign Service officer, and he has delved into the strands and built a good story. And he says that it's only half a story. Even Dalrymple says that only 10% of Nalanda has been excavated. So that's it.
So,
And you've interviewed him.
Yes,
So you can
yes.
catch the interview on Newslaundry soon.
so I was telling Abhay, after the interview, we had one chapter on Nalanda in class 8 or 9 when I was in school. And at that time, if I remember correctly, it was, at least in our textbook, it was the most ancient university ever in the world. But yeah, it's about time.
We knew it in fragments. Now more
there's a more.
credible information of how real its contribution was to the ancient world is getting.
On
Right.
the question of what Hartosh was saying, that why in 10 years, why haven't we had a right-wing historian?
Hmm.
Like, it is something to think of, that it takes a William Dalrymple to write a book on ancient India's contribution and everyone starts talking about it. In the last 10 years, why hasn't, and only 10% of Nalanda excavated? I mean, if you have cultural projects also,
Well,
there doesn't seem to be a focus on even cultural projects.
Well, I mean, I think
The
that's
way that-
because of the reward incentive system, and I won't take the name, but one particular reasonable right of center voice who I'm fairly friendly with, who I was speaking with at a Holy Milan, by the way, at RSS, has a Holy Milan, which they used to invite me. I don't think I used to go also. And that person said, I said, dude, you're also going a bit off. Like you're going into the Open India zone because you have solid work and you can. And this person said that unless you go all the way, you get no patronage. And I'm never going to get patronage from your liberal side. This is my only chance. And if I want patronage, I have to go that far. And when you go that far, then you can't have sense. I mean, if you, like, for example, the idea of Swaraj, the magazine, the digital, initially when it started, it was a great idea because there were no right of center sensible voices. But they did not stick to that. They went into the Open India zone. I think that's why, because if anyone wants to stay there, you can't. So I think that is
For political patronage.
political patronage, exactly.
The very expectation that Nalanda's glory has to be retold by a right-wing historian is absurd, because it's not a right or left
Yeah,
thing.
a general indexing.
It's not a right or left thing. It should be a
But
matter
then
of.
if you say that the left ignored it or that there was injustice, why haven't you been able to come up with?
Nobody is saying left ignored it. What is that? The new evidence has emerged that how real its contribution is. Maybe also left focused more in the Marxist terms on economic history. So cultural history projects have been like apart from a great work, A.L. Wasam's The Wonder That Was India, that in 1954, cultural history was generally ignored for different reasons.
But I think also objectively, Anand, I just want to know your view on it because, I mean, I am not meaning to single out Bihar in that sense, but for example, the kind of excavation that happened in Tamil Nadu with the state getting so involved. Like I've traveled in Bihar extensively because of the amount of shows that we used to do there. The places that are really well kept there are the ones that are adopted by the Japanese or the Koreans, the Gaya. I think the state's inherent, how corrupt or not corrupt it is. Like for example, Punjab has some phenomenal history if you really want to excavate.
Yeah.
But there, though, the attention will never be on that. I mean, I've seen some, ruins and things in Punjab, which the government does not even care about. So, I think how important it is for the state and the general level of, corruption and importance that the state would give to it. Like Stalin has turned it into a a linguistic and a identity issue. It's politically smart to talk about and fund that excavation. You think that has something to do with that as well?
Even the new evidence has not come from excavation. It has come from the digging of the literary sources
I see.
centuries ago. So excavation is still at 10%.
My recommendations are two, and this is to, dovetail the point. Context setting was what I was battling for. I wasn't, necessarily, it wasn't a retort to you saying Adam Smith. It just, what triggered it is that Adam Smith as being seen as this, because with benefit of hindsight, you know a lot more. Like, for example, today, a cub reporter can give you a better analysis of Delhi election than a 40-year experienced political pundit could before the election, because they've seen the result. So the two are, one is, would you rather be rich in 1900 or middle class now? NPR Planet Money is from 2010. It was a fascinating podcast that I had heard. And I mean, if you think that, the kings of the 1800s lived such great lives, they'd be dying of malaria, they'd be dying of bloody diphtheria, kali khasi, loose motions, because nothing was clean. They didn't have ACs. So even if you're middle class today, you're a lot better off than the super rich of the 1900s. Context is important. Where technology has reached, where economics has reached, where data has reached. And the second is also in NPR, why economists got free trade with China so wrong. And this was written just last week. This is not a podcast, it's a newsletter. Do read it, because, again, the point I was making is hindsight gives you so much more information than the most brilliant predictors of things. And I think that is why I would take today's economists, even if they're mediocre, more seriously than the brilliant economists of, 200 years ago or 100 years ago, whenever it is. On that note, I'd like to thank our producer Priyali and our sound recordist Anil and all our subscribers. Happy Valentine's. All of you who are lovers, go out, love, make love. All of you who are haters, buy a subscription, get the lathi, and go looking for people who found love just because you losers can't. See if you can fuck it up for
Why are
someone
they
else.
buying the subscription before doing all that?
Because you might as well. It may teach you some love. Haters, I mean, just because you're fucked up. Yeah, the best thing you can do is fuck up other people's lives.
You missed a very large category, which is of majority. People who want to love but will not get. So
Yes, love but will not get love. For you, I have this share. कभी किसी को मुकम्मल जहां नहीं मिलता, कहीं ज़मीं तो कहीं आसमान नहीं मिलता. Be happy with what you've got. On that note, adios. And we'll close with the song for students, which was an anthem back in the day for rebels. And I think it's still relevant. Check it out. See you guys next week. Bye-bye.